Welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to present to you the FY25 budget for Fire and Life Safety Services in Springfield. My name is Mike Caven. I'm the Fire Chief of Eugene Springfield Fire. The mission of Eugene Springfield Fire is to serve our communities through preserving life, protecting property and the environment through preservation, education, emergency medical services, rescue, and fire suppression services. The overall totality of Eugene Springfield Fire covers a large geographic area. When you include our ambulance service area, it's 1,736 square miles. We serve 294,981 citizens in our collective response area, the overwhelming majority of Lane County's residents. Eugene Springfield Fire is an all hazards organization, which means we provide fire suppression, EMS, hazmat, confined space, water rescue, aircraft rescue and firefighting, administrative services, training, and everything in between. The services we provide, in a really boiled down nutshell, are our biggest workload being emergency medical services, where we deploy a total of 7 frontline advanced life support or ALS ambulances, 3 of which are funded and supported by the City of Springfield, and a total of 3 basic life support or BLS ambulances, 1 of which is stationed in Springfield, and then there's 2 private ambulances on a daily basis, which are owned and operated by a for-profit company that provides services related to inter-facility and low acuity street level medical calls. Fire protection services, our largest chartered responsibility, providing structure and brush fire response. In Springfield, we have a total of 4 engines that are a part of the 13 total for Eugene Springfield Fire. We have 1 aerial ladder truck stationed at 28th and Centennial of the 4 total, and no ARF crews, which those are stationed at the Eugene Airport as aircraft rescue and firefighting teams. Those crews specifically are funded by landing fees within the Eugene Public Works budget and Eugene Municipal Airport. We have brush engines. There's 4 total, 1 of which is staffed in Springfield, and 3 water tenders or trucks that carry water, 1 of those stationed in Springfield. The asterisks by these specific crews, the brush engines and water tenders, like many of our specialty services, are not staffed all the time, but cross-trained with firefighters who, when the need arises to take these specialty apparatus, step off of their fire engines and onto these vehicles to provide those very specific services. Brush engines during our high-risk wildfire seasons, we also utilize those when we send off-duty firefighters to support fires in other parts of the state that are threatening communities. And then our water tenders in those areas that are not supported by fire hydrants, which require us to carry these trucks, which bring 3,000 gallons of water to the scene of a fire, again, where there's no hydrants. The kind of busiest in our response area within our contract districts is down by Doris Ranch in the Harbor Drive neighborhood, which is not hydranted and is a part of the Willett-Kinsey Fire District, which contracts with the City of Springfield for fire protection services. And then for non-fire services, we've specialized rescue and response, as we talked about, hazardous materials, confined space, and water rescue. The hazardous materials team is a regional asset, partially funded by the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, which is stationed at the Valley River Station in Eugene. The technical rescue team, which is stationed at the Santa Clara Station, very near Beltline with easy access through freeways to our communities. And water rescue teams, 1 at Station 5 in Gateway in Springfield and 1 at Sheldon in Eugene. Again, the airport rescue team is out at the Eugene Airport. Other services provided, nuisance fire alarms, smoke detector inspections, other types of, again, non-fire related responses that we're called to handle water issues. We kind of like to refer to it as when in doubt, send fire out. Next, we're going to talk about our FY25 proposed budget overview. Probably like me, many of you will direct your eyes towards the big numbers on the right-hand side of the page. First thing to talk about is just the difference between FY24's amended budget and the FY25 proposed budget. That looks like there's significant reductions within fire and life safety. And this is a bit of a misnomer. A lot of that change is due to number 7, the capital outlay budget. We had already budgeted nearly $1 million in equipment that included our kind of our most expensive piece of equipment, our personal protective firefighting gear. That was replaced or ordered here in FY24. And then we had to order a ladder truck to replace Tower 3 at Station 3 at 28th and Centennial. We had to use the supplemental budget process with funds available in 713, our equipment reserve, to pre-purchase at a discount a ladder truck from our manufacturer. The reason we needed to do this was in learning that our apparatus supply chain, or the manufacturing capabilities, is backed up over 4 years. We actually, once the order was processed and placed and we got a build number in line, the anticipated outer limit of receiving that vehicle was 52 months. And so we took the extraordinary step of a pretty significant supplemental budget request to accommodate the purchase of that vehicle and some others, which we'll touch on a separate slide. As we dive into our budget, the biggest driver is our personnel services at about 75%, or just over $18 million in total. Next, we would look to materials and services. Again, that's equipment, supplies, vehicle maintenance, you name it. Another big piece of that budget is where functions that are provided by the city of Eugene, where those are placed. For us, a number of positions really between the cities throughout any given year might be staffed by an employee of one city or the other, and the IGA allows for kind of this contracting that goes back and forth between the two cities to pay the wages and benefits of those specific employees. And then next would be our indirect services, so all the support functions from IT and HR and those types. Then our dispatch contract at $880,000. That is both for the regional dispatch center over here at Central Lane 911, but also accommodates for the transition of radio investment dollars, so communications dollars, into a separate fund that all the regional fire departments in the cities and the county pay into. And then there's our capital outlay budget, which that's to address various capital needs and vehicle replacements and those things. For revenues, we have a relatively diverse mix of revenue, but still the overwhelming majority of fire and life safety's money comes from the general fund, which is about $12 million, almost $13 million at $12,722,000. Next is the ambulance transport fund. So the ambulance transport fund, it's an enterprise fund where our ambulances are operated out of, so they are revenue backed. Year over year, that fund can become distressed. It's forecasted to be a distressed fund going into the future. And a lot of that's driven by ever reducing rates in the Medicare and Medicaid system, and then many of our population, as it ages, becoming eligible for those programs, in particular Medicare, which pays probably about 20% of the billed charges. And so that's a real impact to that fund going into the future. Next is our levy. So every 5 years we pass an operating levy within the city of Springfield to help fund one of our 5 fire stations. And that's $2,121,000. And then there's our fire contract districts. That is the Glenwood Water District, Willa-Kinsey Fire District, and Rainbow Water District, who, if you're not aware, Rainbow Water District also has a fire operations levy to help pay for their portion of their contract for service with the city. And then last but not least is our permits. That is the fire marshal or deputy fire marshal who works in the building department, who a part of their functions come from fees that are charged for plans review and surrounding fire protection. We think about what we do there. Not only are we looking at building functions to fire code, but also access, lane widths. It's a big part of our overall development process to make sure that life safety services are delivered in an efficient way and no new buildings create a kind of an undue challenge or threat to life. Next, we're just going to take a quick look at our overall FTE counts here in fire and life safety. When you look at this, and in the next slide, we'll look at a more broader overview of the Eugene Springfield Fire Organization chart. But if you look right below the fire chief, our newest investment in this proposed budget is for a public information officer to support our wildfire planning and fuels mitigation program that we are just getting off the ground. When you look in this structure, all of the green positions, these are the City of Springfield's contributions to the fire administrative services. So for Springfield, they provide 2 management level positions, and that is our Deputy Chief Fire Marshal. You'll see as we move into FY25, the title of that division changing from Fire Marshal's Office to Community Risk Reduction and Resilience. And that's to model after really what they're tasked with, their mission and the expanding function of wildfire mitigation work living within that division. And then there's our Administrative Services Manager. Those 2 positions in particular in FY24 were moved over to Eugene because of kind of a departure in pay ranges and equity within the fire administrative function. However, these are still positions that are funded through the fire and life safety budget. Springfield provides a number of our operations positions, 4 battalion chiefs, 16 captains, 15 engineers, and 28 firefighters staffing 5 fire stations. And then one of the fire instructors within the training division. A number of our EMS positions come out of Springfield. Our training officer, an EMS instructor, new in FY24, and we'll talk about this here in a minute on our accomplishments page, single role paramedics and single role EMTs, and then the basic life support positions, which have been a part of Springfield, but funded or employed by the city, funded by Springfield and employed by the city of Eugene. Fire Marshal's Office, we have 2 deputy fire marshal, or 1 deputy fire marshal 2, and then a life safety inspector in addition to the fire marshal. And administrative services, we have 1 management analyst 2, an EMS accounting tech, and a fire support specialist. In our technology services, we have an application support technician and an administrative specialist who supports our data unit as it grows and informs our decisions. We look down at the total number of FTEs funded here. We've gone up a total of 5 over FY24. Part of that is the addition of the single role paramedic and EMT positions and some cost savings associated with that allowed us to add some back. And then also 1 being the addition of the public information officer. This I won't go into full detail. This is provided in the presentation just as an opportunity to see kind of the number of positions that move across Eugene Springfield Fire and the support of the totality of operations here within our region. All right, here we're going to talk about some of our accomplishments in FY24. One thing that we're really excited about is the Oregon State Fire Marshal Engine Grant. We applied for this about 1.5 years ago, and sometime between June and the end of the year, we'll be receiving a Type 6 wildland urban interface engine. This is a resource that we've never had between our 2 cities. It's a pickup truck, basically a Ford F550 with compartments, a tank, and hose, and a small pump that's smaller, it's more nimble, it has a lot of other applications outside of the urban interface space, but as the wildfire threat grows, it's nice to be able to improve our options for how we respond. Back in this last fire season, we actually utilized a couple pickup trucks with what are called slip-in pumps to pair with our water tenders, which we talked about a couple of slides ago. Right now, when we deploy that water tender, or in years past, it would go out with 3 firefighters on it because that's the crew that staffs the station. And when you're moving water, you don't need everybody. So what we tried out this last summer was putting these 2 pickup trucks that we just received via Eugene Fleet with our water tenders, and then an existing vehicle at another station, so that all 3 of our water tenders had something very similar to this Type 6 wildfire engine, that when a tender went out, it went out as 2 pieces of equipment. The truck that carries the water and a driver, and then a Type 6 wildfire engine that can go to work with 2 people on it and make a pretty big difference. And so we saw great success with that. We look forward to having a proper Type 6. This comes with no cost sharing from the state of Oregon. And again, we'll receive that sometime between now and the end of the year. There's no specific strings attached to that, meaning this wasn't us committing to sending that resource or staffing that resource for statewide events. We will do that as long as we can with our staffing and we can adequately protect our community. But it's a great investment to have here in the community. And like I mentioned before, it's a type of resource that we're not putting staff on. We're just able to transition to that when a traditional fire engine isn't the most appropriate resource. And then next, we deployed to 5 separate wildfire conflagrations in the state. And invoiced the State Fire Marshal's Office $118,000 for fire and life safety, $60,000 of that being the Tyree Ridge fire down in Douglas County. We had 2 near conflagrations where we utilized the Enhanced Mutual Aid Program that came from Senate Bill 762 in 2021, meaning when we had the Moon Mountain fire here just off of I-5 in the Glenwood area, we were able to call for statewide assistance on that, paid for by the State Fire Marshal's Office. It was able to come far sooner than had we needed to call for an emergency declaration from the governor to get those resources. And then also up in the Mount Tom area, we had that fire where there was a pretty significant response. We participated in that and saw great success, and neither one of those incidents were designated as conflagrations. Triennial MCI disaster drill. This is a drill process that occurs every year at the Eugene Airport, but the 3rd year is the all hands full-scale drill. That takes airport staff, Eugene Springfield fire staff, the airline industry participates, emergency management, the county, the law enforcement, the FBI, hospitals, you name it. It's a great exercise for us in testing our systems for any type of mass casualty incident, and these are pretty fantastic. We also saw the Eugene Airport upgrade their index, which is good for our region as a whole. Basically what that means is that there's a threshold of the number of larger jets that they receive in a day, and once they pass that, we had to add staffing at the airport. Like mentioned before, the staffing at the airport is 100% funded by the airport, its landing fees. So we're excited to see that's the first firefighting staff that we've added in a long time. And then FY24 accomplishments and special events, our ambulance redesign, that's been a huge success. We worked through really planning in FY23 and implementation in Eugene and moved through into Springfield in FY24. The whole basis of that program was to transition firefighter paramedic positions, staffing ambulances to standalone paramedics and EMTs, or what we call single role positions. These are folks who had a desire to work specifically within the EMS system. We're looking forward to that. We saw some significant improvements in recruitment for that work, so we have access to a whole different workforce. Those also positions come at a cost savings for a number of reasons between how FLSA and PERS works within those positions, and then not being cross-trained comes at somewhat of a cost savings. And the intent behind that was to be able to roll that cost savings into staffing investments to help secure and support the system. We did that in this budget. adding, I believe, 5 positions in 615, where those bodies mainly will help reduce our reliance on overtime. Recruitment, we made some changes similar to what we found in the ambulance system. Folks are harder to come by, especially firefighter paramedics. It's a really, really tight job market out there. And of the 250 response staff that we employ across Eugene Springfield Fire, 85% of them are already paramedics. There's 3 people on every fire apparatus, and so we looked hard at, internally, and made the decision that we didn't need everybody we hire to be a paramedic, and so we opened up that recruitment this year to firefighter EMT, and we saw an exponential increase. So we were averaging between 30 and 40 applicants in firefighter paramedic recruitments, and the one that was closed about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, was 270 applicants. So a significant improvement, access to a workforce. We're excited to be able to provide that expanded opportunity for folks who are looking to transition to this work. So it doesn't require the college degree and commitment away from family for folks who are working and looking for a change. Allows access to our veterans who are coming back with EMS certifications but that aren't paramedics. So we're excited to see the workforce that we get for a fall fire academy. Data enhancements, another big important part of our work here at ESF. The last investment has been a data analytics platform that takes years worth of response data to talk about how are we performing, how are we benchmarking, and then where do we need to make investments. This will be an incredible tool as we think about the future of Springfield and the development of Glenwood. And it will answer the question, inform our decision makers on if they move a fire station, will that provide adequate coverage, or do we need to add a fire station somewhere? So we're really looking forward to exercising that and sharing it with our elected officials to help inform the recommendations that we're making and ultimately their final decisions on staffing and service levels within the city. And then fleet investments, we talked about it in the capital outlay. Due to supply chains and manufacturing timelines, we are in line to effectively replace the majority of our fleet, modernize it, from our ambulances to our fire apparatus. The biggest investment being over $5 million worth of fire apparatus that includes a tower ladder, 170 or 107 foot ladder truck. It's been about 8 years since Springfield had a regular ladder truck assigned, and then an engine company. And so that will bring our fleet up to snuff for the next several years. The problem being is that it's going to take 4 to 5 years for those apparatus to arrive and be in service. So appreciate the work of the council and the supplemental budget process to make sure that we could get in line for these critical pieces of equipment. Things that we're thinking about in FY25 or significant changes: wildfire resilience. We've established a program here in FY25, wildfire planning and fuels mitigation. And the contribution with that and getting the program going in this proposed budget is the addition of a public information officer. Eugene Springfield Fire does not have a public information officer, has not had a full-time public information officer for a very long time, never during the course of this merged organization. And so we're excited. We are the only public-facing agency in either city that doesn't have somebody to run public engagement. This will be a very important tool as we think about wildfire planning. Some of the programs that exist out there are very heavily run by community members and their engagement with proper education on how to prepare their properties for the threat of wildfire. So we're working on updates basically to all of our guiding documents here within Eugene Springfield Fire. Our organizational structures, I mentioned it with our fire marshal's office, focusing on what's their mission, community resilience and risk reduction, updating goals for each of the divisions, our guiding policy documents, and our vision. core values, kind of everything that drives who we are in writing. And then updating our standards of cover, which is basically our document that demonstrates here are our benchmarks, here's how we achieve them, here's how we measure up, and here are the things that we're thinking about in the future. And then that ties very directly into a strategic plan for fire. Components of that are tied to the ongoing governance review process and what the outcome of that is, what the final oversight for Eugene Springfield Fire might be. Ambulance transport redesign, we'll continue to work on that to align revenue and cost for ambulance transport. We should be fully complete in that transition in early FY25, and then we're also evaluating what the long-term future of dual role ambulances are or are not within our system. And so a lot of that system and how we deploy the types of calls we're going on are a constant source of planning and review here in fire. And then this last legislative session, we received funding for an additional ambulance due to the closure of the University District Hospital. There was also funding for what's called an innovation fund, which is designed to open access to same-day care and then also prevent 911 calls and prevent emergency room use. So we're looking forward to that in helping guide our long-term future in medical services. And then fire station resilience, we plan to work with finance and emergency management to apply for seismic grants in FY25. State of Oregon provides grants up to $2.5 million per facility. And so we're going to work to secure some grant writing support on that. 4 of the 5 fire stations in Springfield are not up to current seismic standards, and so we're going to try to tackle that. Again, future year considerations, this always looks pretty similar. Station remodels and seismic upgrades. Station location is a part of that. And then governance. We should hopefully, before we even start FY25, is have some kind of vision of what the next steps in kind of building that plan is and where our respective councils provide direction on that. Future growth, that's always going to be an important planning tool. We know, as the city pushes, out Bob Straub, and also in the area in Marcola Meadows, that's creating a pretty big workload for our ladder truck. And so as we kind of plan for the future in that space, always important, Glenwood, as I mentioned earlier. We continue to evaluate alternative service delivery models, and that means the types of calls that we're going on, are there more appropriate resources to utilize fire and EMS. Ambulance fund reserves is again with the ambulance redesign and other functions, is finding ways to do the work that really do our best to keep the need for general fund support out of Fund 615. But at the same time, trying to plan for increasing call volume and population growth. The aging population, as I mentioned earlier, that has an impact on how many people are participating in Medicare in particular, which does not come close to providing the cost recovery for us to be available and provide that service. So all of those things pretty ongoing and pretty normal for all of our fire service partners across the state of Oregon. Last but not least, thank you for your time. Thanks for kind of going through this, your continued support of the Fire and Life Safety Department, the city of Springfield as a whole. Your time, your sacrifice to the budget process is appreciated. The work that happens here, helps support the work that happens in the field. If it weren't for you all, we would not be able to achieve our mission. So look forward to seeing you in May and answering any questions you might have that are lingering.